Hello, everybody. Yeah, this is the start of a very special webinar for Solid Sense because we have a great guest today. And that guest, I think many of you will know him already, is Matt Godbold. So I want to introduce him to join the show. Matt, can you please show yourself? I hope you're there, actually.
I am still here. Yes, thankfully, yes. Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, great. I mean, yeah, we're going to have a conversation about all kinds of things. So maybe let's start where, we are Solid Sense. We do webinars like this maybe every 3 months or so, but we usually don't have guests. We present parts of our products, things we want to share. But now for the very first time, we have a guest, and that is, quite exciting and different. And yeah, that you are the guest is even more exciting. I want to go back to the first sort of where Solid Sense and Matt Godbold met, because I don't know exactly the date, but I think maybe 6 years ago or so. I think Godbold.org.
2019, yeah, it was 2019, yeah, or sometime in August.
I think Godbold.org got really, got some traction and really popular with many people. At the time, we were playing with these kind of things. There were a couple of other websites that also could allow you to run some C or C++ programs. But this one looked different. And so I said to our marketing team, yeah, maybe this is an opportunity for us to sponsor this website. But okay, we can do that with Patreon. But then the marketing side said, oh yeah, but we don't have visibility then, so we have to get more visibility. And they took it off from there, and we had a very enthusiastic marketing lady, Monica, that you will remember, no doubt.
I do remember her very well, yes.
And she, what I got from it, I don't have the full story, so I'm very interested to hear your story. But my impression was that you were not really very enthusiastic about getting sponsors and getting into this kind of domain and
Absolutely.
feeling obligations from companies that you didn't
well remembered. Gosh,
for.
yeah, you do remember. Yeah, no, so yeah, she I think Monica emailed me in like August, and we had various conversations back and forth, and I was very, we had Patreon. Obviously Compiler Explorer, as you say, had sort of started to gain traction, and it had moved from being something that I could pay for myself to something where I needed the help of other people or else I'd be bankrupt. And so Patreon came along and helped me a bit with that. But yeah, but I was sort of reluctant to get into the whole sponsorship thing, from a point of view of like just the users. I don't want, as a user myself, I don't want to have loads of like banners all over the place and inline ads and things like that. That's not a great experience, and it's certainly nothing I want for CE. But I have to, there are bills to pay, and there's a little bit of space at the top of the screen. And so after a lot of conversations back and forth, Monica convinced me that I should open the door to the idea of like very discreet marketing based little thing at the top of the screen. And I think we've struck the right balance since then. And I'm really grateful to her for like convincing me, right? Because now we have a few other sponsors. As you say, you share a bit of the screen real estate with some of the other notable folks, but you were first. For the longest time it was just Solid Sands, and I was very grateful to you for doing that, and also for sponsoring me on Patreon. So you showed me the way. And hopefully, I've never had a bad feedback about the sponsors. People do have ad blockers and it does hide them, but by and large folks are very happy just to have something up there. They understand that seeing a little icon at the top of the screen is a small price to pay for everything else being free.
But in terms of ad blockers, I have ad blockers running as well, of course. But it usually pops up, so you somehow fly under the radar of many.
We've had a bit of a run-in actually with them. So there are a number of open source ad blockers that have like, GitHub repos with all of their block lists and whatever. And we've sort of filed bugs saying like, please don't block this. This is the one thing that we do to try and pay for the site. And then, reasonable people can disagree about what constitutes an ad and what they do and don't want to see. Yeah. I get it. So, some do, some don't, but we do try our best to be as discreet as possible so that hopefully nobody reports it as being annoying. And so that it doesn't annoy me. I don't go with an ad blocker. So, yeah.
So I'm glad that worked out, and yeah, we're still sponsoring. You got a lot more sponsors by now. You got this great AWS deal
Thankfully.
this
Yeah,
year.
I know. That was fantastic. That was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, AWS have agreed to cover some of the costs themselves, the lion's share, in fact, which is absolutely fantastic. So we're very, very lucky indeed to have this, and it means that we can spend money on the types of things that give us licenses for software that we use, or external monitoring and things like that. So and I keep a good reserve for the bad times when people start not sponsoring, or Patreon goes down or whatever, and then we can still keep the site up and free for everybody. So that's the plan. But so we're very grateful for you giving us the flexibility to be able to make these kinds of decisions and do this kind of work. And I'm sure the whole community is grateful to Solid Sands and the other companies that sponsor us for making it free.
Yeah, great. I think I want to go on to a couple of topics that I've written down, but I mean, your career and my career are very, very different, where we ended up and that's what we did. But somehow I think that I feel there's some similarities, which start with the earliest computers that we had. And my earliest computer was an Acorn Atom. I brought around newspapers at the time. Yeah, I saw the thing on the back. That's
BBC. That was specially for you.
That's a BBC.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sorry. I was drawing the picture behind me. It's very hard the screen's not mirrored, and I'm there. So yeah, behind me I have an emulator of a later version of the Acorn. But yeah, carry on. Sorry, please tell your story.
No, that's exactly what I want to, because I mean, you're a bit younger than me, but you got your hands on these computers a bit earlier than me, I think, in your age. I got this Acorn Atom in the year that I had to do my school exams. So
that sounds very dangerous.
That didn't go so well. But this thing was fascinating, and one of the things that really fascinated me, and I think I recognize that in you, is speed and efficiency of computers. And I remember the Acorn Atom, it would only read the keyboard when it was waiting with the prompt. So it wouldn't store any keys when the program was running. That annoyed me quite a lot. So this computer came with this wonderful manual, right? So it had everything in it. So not just how you could program it, the basic programming language, but also the layout of the board and the circuit board.
Absolutely, the circuit diagrams and which chips were in which sets and which jumpers you could move around to configure things in hardware. Yeah, they were beautiful things back then. It's a long cry from today when you just get a computer and it turns up and you have to just work it out.
Yeah, and you cannot even get into the software that's running on it. So that is right. That is weird. And this computer, okay, I rewrote the keyboard routine so that it would interrupt every 50 times a second. And I figured out that in the ROM that came with it, it would scan the keyboard by columns. And there were about 8 columns. And I figured out, well, you can also scan it horizontally by rows, and there are only 4 rows. So I could make this routine twice as fast. So
right. That's really interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating when like nowadays we take for granted things like keyboards. You plug something in, and like the keyboard that I've got that's in front of me right now has its own in fact, it has 2 microprocessors. Of
course, yeah.
And it talks, it's configurable. It has macros. It then talks USB. USB itself is a whole network protocol, and there's all this kind of stuff. But when you and I started, it was like, no, there's literally switches in a grid, and as you press them, you connect the columns and rows together, and then you just have to kind of read through them and find which key it was that was pressed. It's like bonkers.
And then, okay, you started with a Sinclair, I think, and then you moved over.
That's
to the
right.
BBC.
Yeah, so I had my 8th birthday, which will date me. I got a ZX Spectrum 48K, and that was the huge change for me. That was like, I guess like you, as you say, I'm a few years behind you, perhaps then in that respect, but yeah, it definitely was my undoing for school. I had a lot of things I spent too much time on the computer, but yeah, and then later on around early teens, I got a BBC Master, which was like the 2 generations up from the Atom. The Atom became then there was the Proton that then was the BBC Micro, and then after the Proton was the effectively upgraded version which had a whole 128K of RAM. So I had that for a long while. And then from that route, I hung on to the bitter end, writing 8-bit programs, which I think is where my love of efficiency came from. So all my friends were getting Amigas and Ataris, and I'd already like spent all the money I could possibly afford to buy that computer. And so I just had to learn to be more and more and more efficient with an 8-bit computer to try and compete with my pals. My first sort of paid job was writing or sending in programs to a magazine for other people to type in. And I think me and my friend who we were working together, we still have the record for the fastest Julia set. The fractal. It's like a Mandelbrot set thing. Produce, back when you have to write the multiply yourself because the machine hasn't got a multiply. It's great fun there. But yeah, and then from there I hopped on the Acorn bandwagon and went to an ARM. The very first ARMs were Acorn machines. So then I skipped the 16-bit era entirely. What about you, Marcel? Did you do the 16-bit era, or did you hang on with your how did it work for you?
I had an Atari in between, an ST.
Yeah.
It didn't have the manual, and it wasn't as open a system, and it was, so that was okay. I had it for a long time because it was a lot faster, the 68,000.
Yeah,
but okay,
nice processor.
Yeah, it was good, but it didn't have that satisfaction of really being in control of everything, which is still something I like.
I think people definitely made the most of those machines. The Amiga and the Atari, obviously they were very similar in some ways. They both had the same kind of processor, but the Amiga had these co-processor chips, and the real trick with the Amiga was then learning how to program the co-processors to do magical things. And I had friends later on, when I went and worked in the games industry, I had friends who used to write Amiga demos, and like hearing what they were up to required sort of the mastery of understanding exactly which cycle this thing completes, so that the copper chip can reprogram the blitter chip, and then the blitter chip does something else, and then an interrupt happens and the CPU gets to rechange. It's like, a beautiful orchestra, but you have to understand how the system works at the lowest possible level in order to be able to extract that kind of performance. And I don't think you can do that these days, or it's harder to do that these days with modern computers, because literally, like my two children have identical computers in the basement, but they're different, right? They have slightly different revisions. It's not quite the same, so you can't do that. The nearest thing I think you can do is or at least when I was in the games industry, so I used to make video games, you'd have a PlayStation or an Xbox, the original Xbox, and then those were the same, so if you found some trick that worked on that and Sony let you get away with it, then you knew it would work on every PlayStation. So there was still a little bit of the kind of like, how do I eke out this extra bit of performance by doing something clever with the hardware. But yeah, and I guess the nearest thing nowadays is embedded systems, where you get to prescribe what kind of hardware you're going to be running on. But I don't know. Yeah. Those days maybe are gone for like the majority of desktop-based programmers.
Yeah, okay, but okay, still you see that so many people get really deep into the machine, and then that's I like that enormously. And then okay, you have the Raspberry Pis, and you can go deep, and
yeah, I found one actually. I knocked one on the floor earlier. I've just got these all over the place.
And these Arduino devices, you can really get down to the lowest level still. So that is nice and interesting.
It's certainly accessible, but it's not there by default. You and I turned the computer on and literally just got a blank screen and a prompt, and literally everything was open to you. You could poke hardware registers. You could, make the screen roll because you turned off the V blank and the V sync signal, and the TV would lose synchronization. You're like, oh my gosh, you're very, very exposed to it. And then nowadays, that's abstracted away from you unless you like use an emulator, or you physically buy a bunch of breadboard and put PC circuits on them, or as you say, an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi or something like that. So yeah, it's not as straightforward, but it is there. And certainly at CPPCon this year, I gave a presentation where I talked about some low-level nonsense, and one of the people in the queue for questions said, how can we teach, I'm an old man, they said, they meant me, but you grew up in this world, so how do the people who are just coming into the world of working understand all this stuff? How are we going to lose them out because they didn't have the same experience I did? And I pointed behind him in the queue for questions, and there were two students who were like undergrads in two of the separate lines, each of whom had previously given a talk, one on like how USB works at the lowest level, another one on like low level emulation stuff. And I'm like, I think we're fine. People who like this kind of stuff will find a way.
Yeah. No, and students. So okay, we have interns, and currently we're going through an intern selection process for the next intern, and I always get so happy about meeting these people because they're really motivated and they want to do things and they want to get low level stuff, and they go to our booth because we do low level stuff, and that is so nice because yeah, there are people interested in doing that, and so I'm also always quite uplifted by that spirit that exists.
My first experience was when I worked at Google for a while, and I went through this sort of period of thinking, oh my gosh, it's just people who are like in their late 40s, like I was then. We had this special time when the computers were low level and whatever, and then and so like, these new grads coming in, they wouldn't know anything, and then I was very quickly disabused of that when one of the new grads came in, and I was working late, and I came over and was, what are you doing? And he got a bunch of stuff on his desk, and effectively he was reverse engineering the contactless payment system for the London Underground system. And he said, I can't, I'm not going to use it ethically, I'm not going to do it, but I just really want to understand how it's working. He had hex dumps up and he had Wireshark, and I'm like, yeah, I think we're fine. It's not, I'm not special. If you're interested in it, you'll find a way to get it, to dig down and to find what's underneath.
Yeah, I forgot to say we do have a Q&A window, so if people want to pose questions to me or Matt, we can.
We're just. At the moment we're just chatting like we do. So I think the people here should know that like we meet once every year or every 6 months or so just to catch up on like sponsors type stuff, but it always ends up descending into a conversation like this anyway. So Marcel and I have gotten to know each other over the years and not spoken so much about sponsorship opportunities as much as reminiscing about cool stuff that we do. But so.
Okay, I want to move on in time because I think Compiler Explorer started in 2012, right? So that is
correct. In fact, I just in a Discord behind you, I was chatting with somebody who still works at the company where I developed it, and they found the original Git repo where it was first developed before it was open source there. And yeah, beginning of May 2012 is Compiler Explorer's birthday.
I think the story how it started just with a script where you could just repeatedly see what assembly output you got, so that story I think is well known by a lot of people, maybe even all the people that watch us today. But at what point did you get into your head, okay, I'm going to bring this out in the world? And then that also implies a lot of responsibility because people are going to expect that this thing is going to be up and running 24 hours a day, and
I wish I'd planned that. I wish I could say that I was expecting this to happen. It's sort of very much by accident. It was pretty early on that I just ran it out there, and it was for many years it languished and nobody knew it existed, right? It was just there and I would bring it up. I think it was about 2015 or 2016. I'm not forgetting now. I've got an email somewhere I should have looked beforehand. And we had Andrei Alexandrescu come and give a presentation at the company where it was developed and where I was working. And he was giving a performance-based, the compilers can do this, compilers can do that. This is how we do stuff at Facebook, as he was working at the time. And I was that annoying person going, I don't think it does that. And he was like, oh, and we'd have this banter and it was fun and everything. And then by the end of it, he's like, he got correctly annoyed and frustrated with this annoying person in the front row putting his hand up, second guessing him every time. So and then he was like, oh, I think there's like some kind of website where we can put the code in and we can look at the output of it. And like everyone in the office turns and looks at me and like, oh yeah, that's my website. He's like, oh right. And then we had a great conversation. But that was when it was first, I realized that people were starting to use it. So 2015, 2016. And then I think Jason Turner in his C++ Weekly started using it, and then every third comment on his videos was like, what IDE are you using? And it was like, it's not an IDE, it's a website, you can go to it yourself, that kind of thing. And so it gradually became more and more relied upon. Then I set up the Patreon, and then I was like, okay, now I actually almost have customers. I didn't intend to have customers, I just was throwing it out there. But as you say, now I have a sort of moral responsibility to keep it up. And I'm very, very, very happy that I have or glad that I have a team of people who are also care about keeping the site up and are working to both improve it and maintain and administrate it. But that sort of team has grown over the years and people have come and gone. But it's not just me. But I have had a few times where a couple of C++ trainers have got my cell phone number, so that if they go into a class and they can't get Compiler Explorer to work or whatever, they can call me and say, "Why is this not working?" And I can fix it. And I'm like, say, "Just call me, it's fine, whatever." So, and I get paged, not so often, thankfully. We've got our own things. I sort of carry a pager for work for my day job, and I also kind of carry a pager for Compiler Explorer. Although thankfully that doesn't go off very often. We are, knock on wood, we've been relatively stable for a long while now, and things tend to take out little parts of the system rather than the system as a whole. The Amazon outage that happened recently did make our short links fail for a few hours, but we recovered reasonably gracefully from that. We've had a couple of other Amazon outages cause us to go down for a while, and then a couple of idiot misconfigurations on my part. It's always me that have brought it down for a few hours. But yeah, there is a responsibility there, and I take it quite seriously. In particular, the ability to be able to save a short URL. You've got you set up something, you've got a compiler, and you've got your code, and you've got the whatever, and then you kind of make a short URL that's like, I'm sending this to, maybe I'm reporting a bug with some library or some compiler. I want to make sure that link is permanent, which is difficult because we want to make changes on our side. Compilers change, libraries change, operating systems change, everything changes. And so we've had to come up with some relatively novel solutions to a lot of interesting problems. And so the majority of work that I do on the site these days now is very much behind the scenes. And, anything that you see that's sort of visible to you is probably a pull request that someone else has made, because they're either adding a language that they care about, or they're adding a new view that's interesting to them. I can't remember the last time I made any kind of user interface changes. It's all been on the back end, or even behind that on the cluster of machines that run and the system. But yeah, it's crept up on me, Marcel. What I suppose I could say is and now I look around here and I think, what am I doing with my life? Every evening I've got something to do, and there's a pull request waiting. And yeah, again, I'm very, very fortunate that I have a group of folks who contribute.
Yeah, I think yesterday you sent out an updated newsletter thingy that you do every week or so. And there are so many names in that. It really, you really have a very big team of people.
Some of those are the core team members, and then some of those are people who have just sent a pull request from outside as well. So and also I hadn't done one for 3 weeks, so there was a lot of things to catch up on. So that was why that was a lot. But yeah, I'm very, very lucky. I'm very lucky. It's a team effort now, even though it's got my name plastered all over it, which I try not to draw attention to. But it's not really mine anymore. It's a community project, and that's wonderful. It's wonderful that we have that.
And yeah, of course, in this time, of course, it was first for C and C++. It was doing that. Let me try to share the screen once more.
Right, for C, yeah.
Because now, let's see. Can you see my screen?
It looks like it's going to load up. We've got yes, it has just appeared. Yes, we can see.
Yeah.
A Compiler Explorer window.
Well, I first want to point out our sponsorship logo here. So
absolutely, yes. Solid Sands. People have seen it a million times, I'm sure, and now they know who it is and who's behind it. And there you are.
We're quite proud of this. We are proud to be here because this is a big name in computing, and especially the world of C and C++. But if we click on the button here, is that the right way to click it? Yeah, we get this now.
I think if you're sharing, this. Oh no, it is working. Sorry. Sometimes the windows share properly. Sometimes they don't. I've had a couple of presentations where but we can see there's about 60 languages, I think. Maybe
so many languages, and now, originally, of course, Godbolt was this household name in C and C++ programming. But now you're everywhere, right? Do all these communities know about you now as well?
I don't know as much. Some of these languages are almost, there's a couple on there, I think, Triton that we just put in last night that doesn't even work. Solidity, Yule is there. There's a number of things for which, the size of the audience is one person who is the person who developed that language and then sent the pull request to add it to Compiler Explorer. So there is definitely a bit of that going on here. And so, it's a kind of, and we're pretty open. If people are prepared to put in the work, we'll gladly accept any language that people want to put on there. We don't have like, oh, you should have this many users or subscribe, whatever. It's not like that. We're very open to it. But yeah, there are some people like the Rust community are very good at keeping it up to date. Now, very recently, we invited one of the Rust folks to be a primary contributor, so they can actually just add the new versions of Rust rather than sending us pull requests all the time. We're just like, look, you can edit the files. You know where they are now. So Rust is now a sort of first-class citizen. When Google first started thinking about Carbon, one of the very first things was I got a very surreptitious email from somebody. I know they're saying like, this is pre-Carbon's like even decloaking. They were like, do you want to be interested? Are you interested in a secret project we're doing? I'm like, of course I am. Why would I not be interested in a secret project? And so and the reason that they invited me was not because of my good looks and my acumen, but no, it's because then that would allow them to put Carbon on day one when they announced it on Compiler Explorer, and so I could work with them to like kind of make that happen. So yeah, it's an interesting situation, but I don't know how well known I am personally in those other communities. I don't imagine so.
You're very well known in the C++ community because that was just CPPCon and you get invited there not for one talk but three, including the keynote. Of the keynotes.
I'm silly. So, I can't say no. I'm sort of I have all the spare time at the moment, so not for much longer, I should add. But yeah.
So when are you going to start work again?
So I start work on December the 1st. November the 1st will be a problem. So I've got the rest of this month basically. My enforced vacation finishes in the 22nd of November, and then in the 1 week before I start with my new employer, I've got a couple of things planned with other people first. So it's a fun and interesting world, the world of finance and the silly rules that we have. So yeah. I'm happy that I've been subsidized to do this for a while. So,
okay, back to Compiler Explorer. Where do you see it going? Do you see it's a sort of a natural growth? Is it things that happen? Because for the longest time it could only compile because you were interested in the assembly code, basically not really in seeing things running. And then at some point, maybe 5 years ago, you added run capabilities.
About right, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, so obviously there are security aspects to that, which is makes sense, right? If you're running other people's code, I mean, if you're compiling other people's code, even that's a problem. But that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so I don't know. This is the problem now. We've reached the point where the things that I use Compiler Explorer for.
They're all in there, right? Everything.
A few percent of what it can do, right? I use it for C++ and maybe Python occasionally, very occasionally, and C maybe. That's it, right? So of the languages and of the features, as you say, I'm staring in only at the assembly code, and there's a couple of other windows that I'll use for like LLVM MCA and a few other bits and pieces for like that. And I've got some ideas to improve that, and I might have some time this week, next week to add my own actual UI changes for that. But I can't make promises. But yeah, it's different so that like I no longer, people ask me, hey, can you do a presentation like what's new in Compiler Explorer? And I have to look up what's new in Compiler Explorer because I don't know anymore. There's so much that I don't use on a daily basis. So the future really, I think, for Compiler Explorer is finding a way that it can continue to improve. I think probably organically, like it has done for the last 12, 13, however many years it is now, organically for a while. But I think eventually there'll come a point when I'll be looking to age out of the process, and I need a structure to make sure that it continues to move on in this sort of very similar way. And I don't know what form that's going to take yet. During this year, for example, I made an LLC, and I've kind of started setting it up so that like it's not just me and my personal bank account, so that there's a place to hang things.
Yeah.
And my guess would be that in some number of years' time, I will have a board of folks who will just, a steering committee, and will say like, this is how the process is going to go. It won't just be, benevolent dictator Matt making it up. Sure. So that I have a path forward. But for me, the most important thing about that process is making sure it's community owned and community, for the community, because there are some very big players in this world. not to say that Solid Sands is not a big player in this world, but like, the Googles of this world and the Microsofts of this world and whatever, and they have their own agendas. And we see that sometimes happening in some of the decisions that they make and some of the things that they either contribute to or, both time and money to. And that with that comes a certain amount of putting their thumb on the scale about which way things are going to go. I don't like that, and so that's one of the reasons why I didn't like to take sponsorship way back when you first contacted me. Is I didn't want there to be a reciprocal obligation of like, can you add a feature that's this for our special product, please? Now, sometimes I have done that because I'm friends with people who want to add their commercial products. I'm like, I want them to succeed, so yeah, sure, you can have your thing in, right, and that kind of stuff. But I don't want that to be the norm. So I want to make sure that whatever road Compiler Explorer takes in the medium term, it keeps that kind of core thing of like, it's for developers, it's by developers for developers. I know it's a sort of cliche. So yeah, that's about the only thing I have at the back of my mind is that sort of feeling that like, I don't want it to become, Microsoft essentially bought it by hiring all the people and now they just make it go in their way and then we use their Microsoft's compiler and everything else. And not, it's like, no, I don't want that. But yeah, I don't think about this stuff too much. I should.
No. Well, in certain ways, you want to keep it sort of small and manageable, right? So that it is an open thing and easy to understand and transferable and all that.
So, I mean, unfortunately it's none of those things. it's open. That's one definitely true, but small and easy to understand. No, if you've not seen a 14-year-old JavaScript that got converted to TypeScript by people who didn't really know what they were doing and who are C++ programmers by trade, not really web developers, then it's as bad as you might imagine.
Yeah, I think you're underselling it. I mean, software that works is important. I mean, this works, and you can download it and install it on your own machine if you want. And so, I mean, yeah, of course, that JavaScript may not be optimal when you view it today, but that's the same with, I mean, the test suite that we sell, Supertest over there. The first code in there is from 1984, so there's a really big old test there.
That is quite something.
And so in a way,
that was when I got my Spectrum. Just to put that into context, that was wow.
So I mean, we see ourselves also a little bit as there's a nice word, not maintainers, but
like stewards, maybe.
Yeah, stewards. Yeah, stewards of this code as well. And if you look in some of these old codes, and sometimes you say, what the hell is going on here? But at some point, someone put that test in there because they had an idea about it, and they wanted to test that and then verify that specific thing. And why I think that is useless today? Of course not. That is still a very different use case from what you would write maybe today. But yeah, I see it. We are also stewards of that old code and make sure that it keeps on working and that we can keep it moving on. And yeah, sometimes we change the skin to make it look better and work better and be more portable. But I also feel this legacy.
Yes, you say legacy but legacy is often used to me. Certainly in coding, legacy is usually a pejorative term. It's like, oh, this is a legacy with this system, and everyone gets away from it. But like a legacy can be a good thing, right? This is like a thing that came and it has a positive impact for the future. So I think maybe that's programmers exposing their own sort of preconceptions or prejudices about new bit is always better, but sometimes having that legacy is incredibly valuable. And I mean, I'm sure like the kind of stuff that you do, having this enormous suite of everyone else's bugs that have been found over the 30 years is what makes your product so great, is the fact that you have this breadth of experience and knowledge and depth of all the things that can happen, even though you think, how could that possibly happen? You're like, well, it happened once in 1988 and we've got to test
exactly.
it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we started 11 years ago. So we are only stewards of this code for the past 11 years.
In fact, you had your 11th birthday this month, right? The first.
A couple of days ago. Yeah. This morning we actually celebrated with a special 11-year breakfast, actually, with nice cinnamon rolls. So that was nice. But I mean, we have, okay, over the past 11 years, what we did was move into the world of functional safety, where people are using compilers and library implementations of C, C++, for safety critical applications, and they need to verify that and test that. So, and there are standards for that. So there are functional safety standards that you have to follow. They're sometimes process-based, they're sometimes requirements-based, which allow people to use compilers and libraries in this area. And so that, to combine that knowledge, that understanding of what functional safety is on the one side with what compilers and libraries do on the other side, that is very it's interesting for sure, but it's also very rewarding, because you couple this very technological thing with this this more it is in certain sense is boring and administrative, but it's also
sort of bureaucratic at some level, but it's there for a very important reason, right? It's not just for the sake of bureaucracy.
And people have thought about that stuff. Yeah, people have thought about functional safety for the past 150 years, since steam engines started exploding, and people thought, okay, how can we improve this state of the world? So it's in our own little corner of we're trying to make the world a little bit better as well. And so that is what.
And it's a very tough job. I mean, like you and I've discussed stuff before about, how do you verify the atomic library for C++, right? How can I show you that an implementation of this is right? Because like compilers can't agree between each other about what the exact semantics are. There are any number of CPU errata that say that this is not really safe to do in the way that you think it is. So I don't know. Your job is very, very difficult.
Well, yeah, we do our best. Let's put it that way. I mean, that's also, I mean, functional safety is not guaranteeing perfection. That's another thing, right. And that has been realized also for a very long time. There is no perfect solution on the technical side for everything. But it is about doing the best that is possible today, and that is what our goal is and our aim is, and that's where we try to push the state of the art forward, and in this way contribute a little bit to the world as a whole, and of course,
right,
keep the company running as well. That's also important.
Well, that's obviously helpful as well, and everyone gainfully employed, and nice working environment for the people that you're responsible for. All those good things, but it's also useful to be able to pay the bills. And yeah, I just the difficulty of what you're doing is quite something, and it's a really interesting intersection, as you say, of sort of bureaucracy. Again, I don't think bureaucracy is the right word, but like this very formal system that has its roots in practical real world, and very, very abstract compilation, and to the extent that the C++ community are thinking about this at all. I don't know that they are. Like the people in the standards committee, they'll maybe pay lip service to some of these things. I know there are some folks from, vehicle manufacturers and things that go to and participate in the standards committee. So there's some people on there who care about this kind of stuff, but it's one of the very, very many things that they're competing for when they're also trying to please the game programmers who don't care about this. All they want to do is make sure that they can cast everything to something it isn't, and then mem copy it to a hardware register, whatever, that kind of stuff. And then you're there trying to say, like, well, we also need to be able to, it would be lovely if we could show that this is a correct implementation under all circumstances, or whatever. Again, I'm going to wave my hands. I don't really know how you do what you do, but it's
well said. But so okay, I think it's about time to round off. I think Lisa gave us 45 minutes.
Yes, and we're dangerously close to that. Yes,
there's no questions. So if people have questions, there's some time for questions still before we round up. One thing I wanted to say is that talking about C++ in the safety critical systems, what we see now is that it's possible to also do safety qualification of the Linux kernel. And so if you can run, say, a Linux kernel on safety critical systems, which is a lot, right? I mean, can you imagine that this behemoth of a thing being safe enough to use in these kind of systems? But that is really something that opens up so much more for people to do in safety critical systems. And we see that especially with C++. There's now, I think, because of this push for this, much more mature and bigger operating system than is traditionally present in these systems. It opens, the gates for all kinds of bigger C++ programming and well, obviously Rust and other systems as well.
Right.
But
right.
I think there's really going to be a change there in terms of the interest in this from the safety critical industry into these other less efficient languages. Sometimes when you're talking about more memory managed languages than Python and Rust.
Right.
So,
And you get some different. There's a different trade-off. I mean, everything we do. It's what makes it engineering, isn't it? Rather than either an art or a science, is the fact that there are trade-offs all the way along. And it's interesting what you say there, because of course you're talking about functional safety here, and like a lot of the discussions, say Rust versus C++, are all about memory safety, which is just one corner of safety in general. I can write a perfectly well-formed Rust program that won't crash, it won't read memory, but is wrong and doesn't do the right thing, or it gets caught in an infinite loop, or that kind of thing, just like I can in any other language. So yeah, it's an interesting world.
Okay, no, still no questions. I'm going to threaten people. If you're not quick now, then we're going to round off.
I think we've got a bunch of folks who are watching us in the background probably, and listening to us, two friends having a chat, which is a nice thing to do. Yeah.
Well, then, Matt, I want to thank you so much for joining us for this conversation, and hope to see you soon. Let's put it that way, and all the best with the new gig that you're starting.
Well, thank you very much. And once again, huge thanks to Solid Sands for being such a supporter of Compiler Explorer now for many, many years. And as I say, our original sponsor and the people that caused us to even look into sponsorship at all, and slowly convinced me that it would not be the end of the world. I wouldn't be selling out. And I think it's worked out fantastically. So I can only thank you. So thank you, Solid Sands.
You're very welcome. We're happy to be benevolent sponsors. Let's put it that way. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.